This is Seraj Bharwani. I'm going to be host for the next 30 minutes. I'm with Illumin, which is a journey AI and advertising platform that connect the dots for consumers across a wide range of channels. The purpose of this conversation is not that today. The focus is on the leaders I have with me. Let's first do the introduction, and then I'll do a setup so you understand how we're going to go about this thing, okay? So let's start with you. Ashley, go ahead.
Is this working? Yes. Hi.
A little closer.
Hi. I'm Ashley Findlay. I am the Senior Director of the Brand Marketing Team at Simple Mills. For those of you not familiar with Simple Mills, it's a portfolio of a better for you brand in a number of categories: crackers, cookies, baking mixes, things like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I've been there about 6 months. Have been in CPG most of my career, though. Bar is a big time.
Nice. Go ahead.
I'm Liz Mella. I'm the Director of Marketing at Farmer's Fridge, and I think we'll get into what the company does in a second. So let everyone introduce themselves.
Everyone, I'm Mike Wolf. I'm on the United team. I'm manager of advertising and social. I focus on a number of different verticals, really Mileage Plus and sustainability, of course the mobile app, and sponsorships. So I work directly with Derek.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So Derek Russell, manager of global sponsorships. At the core of what I do is maximizing the value that we get from the sponsorship programs that we have.
Exactly. We're going to talk about that too. So let me set the stage here. We started out with some other title of what we're going to talk about, but as you can see, we have three very different brands. First of all, if you're going to be in Chicago, you must talk about food. So that's why we have the ladies in the middle, right? We're going to talk about food. And then United, of course, it's an iconic brand based out of Chicago and so forth, so you can't not talk about that, right? And so, but what's the common theme? The common theme is after I spent the time with each one of them separately, what I learned is there is some really interesting breakthrough marketing going on here, which I'm delighted for you to hear about from them. It's fascinating. So we're going to do that in two parts. The first part is so you understand the brand and their challenge. So we can all be together on that, right? Second part will be, what are they doing to address that challenge? Are there one or two programs they've done that have actually gotten them over those challenges? Because remember, that's how we learn. What risks did they take? What did they really do? And what did they learn? Success isn't necessarily important. One way or the other, you want to know what happened, right? That's what we are most interested in so that we can put money on the right places in the businesses that you are in, right? Are we good together on that? Luckily, everything they've done has actually succeeded. So that's good. That's a great positive. So let's start with you, Ashley. So, Simple Mills. What is so unique about Simple Mills? Because it's not like snacks haven't been around. I mean, the world is proliferating with snacks. Walk into any Simple store, right? There's 128 different brands of one thing or the other that's out there. What helps Simple Mills stand out?
Yeah. I mean, as you said, everyone snacks. I mean, that is not changing. Americans are snackers. But I think we could all probably relate that after you have a snack, you often might have some feelings of like, I wasn't so satisfied by that snack, or I don't feel great after eating it. And so I think Simple Mills has really come into some categories as a disruptor in that we can kind of sit in that sweet spot between still tasting awesome, but being made of ingredients that also make you feel awesome. And that is a very unique proposition that is really disrupting some big categories that have some big players in it, like crackers, like cookies. But I would say like underpinning that, so that's the consumer kind of POV, but underpinning that is also this really radical agenda to make products that are not just better for us as humans, but also better for the planet. And we have this very aggressive regenerative agriculture agenda where we know we are a small player, but truly believe in the benefits of these practices. and kind of want to lead by example. And so while we are ultimately going to convince our consumers on taste and the eating experience, we're also really excited for them, like once they enter into the brand ecosystem, to understand a little bit more about what we're doing for planetary health, and hoping that the big guys take notice and follow our lead.
So, love it. It's kosher all the way through, all around, right? So that's all good. What is the real challenge at this point for you? Because you guys have had a good runway.
Mm-hmm.
You have amazing distribution with some very large retailers as well, right?
Yes.
So there's a big wins you have in your place. You're doing a couple $100 million in revenue, which is also fascinating, right? To get there is a tough road. What's the big challenge now in getting people to pay attention to you, because you know you guys want to play in the big leagues now?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of at an inflection point where we no longer are kind of angling to beat out other better for you kind of natural players.
Mm-hmm.
The next frontier for us is really going and capturing those consumers that are currently buying a conventional kind of big box name product and converting them with still winning on taste, but making you feel better, both for like what you're doing for yourself and for your environment. And so the biggest, is to get out of that mindset of like, oh, this is not going to maybe taste very good because it's better for me, or it's in that kind of better for you set, and just saying, no, like this is just a legitimately delicious cracker and I'm going to buy it.
It's what I'm reading in between the lines here of what you said is, it's a good product, it's a wholesome product, but how do you get the message out there in a way that it gains the wider adoption?
Yes, and so awareness is our biggest challenge.
You got it? That's the challenge for her. We'll move on, okay? So let's go to Liz. Liz, what is Farmer's Fridge?
Yes. So Farmer's Fridge is changing the way the world eats by making fresh and healthy food as accessible as a candy bar. We do this through our network of smart fridges, which are basically refrigerated vending machines. You guys might have seen them at places like airports, hospitals, universities, office buildings. And when we got started, people really thought, that's crazy. You can't sell salad out of a vending machine. It kind of inherently it's an oxymoron, I like to say. It sounds kind of weird. It just, those two things don't go together in your head. There's an automatic consumer distrust of the product. Of course, it's not fresh. How could it be? No one's ever done that before. But 10 years later, we've sold 10 million meals, and we've really proven that it can be done. We have a really high repeat rate. So we know once folks try our product that they love it, but it's getting that initial skepticism overruled. That has really been what we work on as marketers.
Who is this for? Who did you create this whole brand for? Who's like the core audience here?
Yeah, so when we think about our consumer, we really have started to think about it less in terms of who we're creating it for and more in terms of an occasion. So because it's more of a convenience play, it's really, for everyone. But as a marketer, that doesn't really help you from an insights perspective, because everyone sort of has that moment in their life when Farmer's Fridge really comes in handy, when you're trapped in a hospital, in an airport, somewhere, the cafeteria is closed, it's midnight at your layover, whatever it may be. And so we've kind of started to rethink of it as occasion-based, and how do we make it as convenient for everyone. And similarly, we really go after price in that way. We have a big emphasis on making sure that our average price is a lot less than a lot of the other players in the fresh food, ready-to-eat salad game. And so keeping our stuff at $10 or $11 as the absolute highest price point is really important, and something we talk about a lot.
So Liz is very humble. The key statistics that she has not pointed out yet, the biggest breakthroughs of what I learned about their business really is they created this whole entire captive, fully controlled retail channel. That's essentially what they have.
Yeah.
1,500 of those, but that's not the only thing they do. They have access into Costco and Target too, right?
Yes, yeah, we launched retail in 2021, so we're now just the jars of salad, not the full fridge, is sold at Costco's and Targets, which is awesome. And yeah, like what Seraj was saying, it's kind of our own media network in some ways, because we are in 1,500 buildings across the country. And so in each of those buildings, I have a 2-foot wide screen that I get to play on. So in some ways I'm like, should I start a programmatic network? But it's very cool because the fridge in some ways functions as a billboard for us. So how I use that physical space is a massive advantage. But then in some ways the fridge is our only point of sale. And so there's no e-com to drive people through. So a lot of the, tech features or technology to get people to make a sale just sort of is out for us because I'm focused on getting bodies to walk to a vending machine. It's really like a brick and mortar play, which is not quite as easy to turn on and off and takes a lot more cohesive groundwork to pull together.
So you see the problem, right? Not just the distribution channel, because they control the channel now, right? So they have all the logistics, the supply chain, and this is nationwide essentially, coast to coast. So that alone is a big challenge. But that's not what we are here to talk about. Our focus was to understand what's the marketing challenge here, right? And that challenge is also very clear to everybody, right? It's like you've got a vending machine where you're thinking you're going there to get a bag of Doritos or whatever it is, right? You're not thinking this is like really wholesome, good stuff that I can have for lunch or dinner. And so that's a whole different perception that you need to shift. Okay, let's move to United. Nobody needs introduction to United. United has 100% awareness out there, right? So that's not the issue here. But the bigger question is, how did you guys decide to make a commitment to? Because so much has been talked about United already, and there will be more to talk about here, right? But we're focusing on one area. How did you get into this commitment to sports and teams as sort of a worthwhile place to make the investment?
Yeah, sure. So, it starts with sponsorships in general. Sports are an element of it, right? But sponsorships in general are a key passion driver for people who are fans of said property, entity, et cetera, right? They care so much about the team, property, et cetera. And the nice part about it for sponsors is that we get to tie directly into that passion point, directly into that consumer, which is obviously an invaluable thing for us.
So the reason I was so intrigued and curious to learn about this thing is you have no idea how many panel sessions I've done over the past 15 years. I bring a ton of marketers on stage. And when they talk about sponsorship, the single biggest thing is I always find, yeah, sponsorships are great. We can name stadiums, we can name teams, we can do this, we can do that. And then when I ask them, well, how do you account for this? Like, how do you show business impact or business results and things like that? It's always soft metrics of one sort or the other. So I'm always intrigued by that, right? So I get the passion point. Absolutely, I get it. But you guys are doing a lot more than that. Right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And,
because this is tied to the teams moving around and the travel happening. So it's like a built-in proposition for travel here, right?
I'll put it this way. We have been the naming rights sponsor of the United Center since 1994. But our sponsorship strategy has changed considerably, tenfold, multiple times since we put our name in that building. How we structure our agreements has changed completely. Our strategy has changed completely. I'll quickly talk about Chicago specifically and how we approach it. Chicago specifically just cares so much about their sports, and this is our hometown airline, right? So it's really critical for us to show up that way locally. That's why we sponsor all of the just about every major team in the Chicagoland area. But how we actually measure the success of how we go about it. Some of it's soft, right? We'll do brand impact studies, understanding how many people are actually, how people feel about United, measuring that against folks who are unaware of our sponsorship. And every time we get those numbers back, people always feel better about United, more likely to fly United, purchase United when they've heard of our sponsorship. So we can even get more granular.
Yes, which we Mike, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're asking the investment, like why we made this choice.
That's right.
And you look at the numbers from 2023, and 97 of the top 100 US broadcasts were sports, and 92 of that was the NFL. So the majority of the audience in television right now is focused on sports. We have such a distracted media landscape at the moment, and sports continues to grow. And we still see that the audiences are there, that it's the last appointment viewing that people actually have. So if we're looking to create ads and put ads in specific places, well, we're going to choose sports because we know that's where the eyeballs are. And when we do that, we need to be hyper-specific in what we're doing. We're not going to be creating something that is just putting the United logo next to the Bears logo. We want to have specific language. We want to show knowledge where we actually can represent that we have the same mindset that the fans do, that we know what they feel, we know what they're interested in, and we can actually illustrate that in the content and the creative we put together. And I think you've seen even growth in other areas of sports, especially within the women's game, within women's basketball, but also women's lacrosse, women's volleyball. You're starting to see this growth beyond that. There's more opportunities that are coming up. There are more places for brands to play that has not been the case in the past within sports. So we just want to continue our investment there.
Perfect. Got it? This is a pretty established brand, and its issue is, if I read it correctly, stay relevant to something that is top of mind, to something that people are really engaged. So United remains front and center, right? Okay, but there is a lot more to that. Hang tight. Because when we actually talk about what the results they produce is really beautiful. It's fantastic. It's brilliant work. So we're going to come back again, right? So let's go to Ashley now at this point. Hang tight for a second, okay? Ashley, to really get past now that whole inflection point that you're anticipating, you want to be with the big guys, you want to really become mainstream. What are some of the things you are doing? Let's talk about one idea that you've tested in the market that you believe is working.
Yeah, I mean, we started this whole panel by saying the common theme here was breakthrough. And these are categories where there's a lot of noise happening and a lot of big spenders and big brands. And so we knew we needed to really punch above our weight and break through. And so that was first and foremost, like, job number one. And then we thought, well, what's distinctive about us? Like, what's our point of difference that can really break through to consumers beyond, our competitors? And that's what's in our products. And that kind of surprise of like, wow, this cookie can taste this good. It has that in it. And so we really leaned on that. And then also just riding the consumer trends right now of we're all paying a lot more attention to what we're putting in our bodies and looking at ingredient lists and really desiring kind of cleaner ingredients. And so we're bringing the ingredients front and center into our really short form, social ads. And so we launched a campaign called What the Snack. And it really shows, so we've got a butternut squash and red beans going into a cheese cracker and the surprise and delight that it can taste that good. What the snack. So we launched that on social in January, and so we've seen about a quarter of results, and initial brand lifts are looking super positive. And so yeah, that's our approach, and we're placing big bets on it.
It is hard to do. I have a quick question for everybody, in terms of raise your hands for those who actually read labels before they buy something. See? That's the majority of the people,
Exactly.
right? So there's the evidence for that.
Yes.
Liz, let's move on to you. Clearly, adoption is a challenge. I told you, I've gone through my own experience myself, right? I travel extensively and I see this fridge, and first time I see it, it's like, oh, wow, what is that? And so go ahead. What are you doing? What are some of the things you're trying that's actually working for you?
Yeah, so that is the common problem with us is I say, oh, I work at Farmer's Fridge, and people are like, oh, yeah, I've seen that. Never tried it. And of course, it's like I said, it's a scary concept to everyone. You're just kind of like, how would that ever be good? There's no world. And spoiler alert, it's because what we're doing is really, really hard. And we work very hard to make sure the food is fresh every single day, because you don't really get a second chance on a salad being fresh. That would just shut the company down if we were selling stuff that wasn't good. But with that, kind of using that insight that people have seen it, but they just don't feel motivated to try it. We launched just in March, actually, First Meal Free an app, which in some ways is such a beautifully simple concept. It's kind of crazy we didn't have it live before, but of course, there's a lot of hesitation. How can we give away that much food? What would the payback be like? Would we just get bargain hunters coming in? But just with the first 2 cohorts already, we've already seen them beginning to pay back that first meal with our really 1 month of results. And so it's proving to be a very great program so far, but it just kind of gets that. And the way we've positioned it in market is like, we believe in our food so much that no skin off your back, you get to try it as well. And of course, the added benefit of we're able to run this because we have our own point of sale. It's all our own technology through the fridge and then through our app as well. And then by gating it only to app customers, it allows us to get the first-party data to retarget them and take them on a life cycle journey and whatnot. But it's just been kind of, in some ways, I'm starting to think of it as like the sub-headline of the brand, like Farmer's Fridge, try your first meal, and that's just our value prop. And so that's what we've run recently. And then some other things that we're doing is we're a B2B2C company in a lot of ways. Of course, I'm very focused on talking to the consumer, but the client is the facilities manager, office manager, where all of the fridges go, and that's our first and biggest sales hurdle. And then it becomes a marketing challenge to get that person bought in, because if we're in, if there's a fridge in an office like United, I don't have a way to talk to those United employees. All I have is this person, this contact who brought me in, who, if I build a relationship with them, can, post a flyer about me or post in the company Slack or forward it to a newsletter. And so building playbooks and programs to make that person's lives really easy, and even doing stuff like loading up their account with credits, so that they have this brand love for Farmer's Fridge that then they will translate to all of their employees, has been really interesting. And then the third thing I would talk about is just with 1,500 very, very unique locations, we almost in some ways have to think of it as like 1,500 marketing strategies. And so we're starting to test paid media at individual locations. So last summer we did kind of an O'Hare airport takeover where we advertised on the security bins at O'Hare just to specifically call out, hey, we have 19 fridges in O'Hare and we're in 15 Hudson News locations here in the airport. There is a salad waiting for you on the other side of the security line. You don't have to eat whatever else it is. And so that campaign was really successful, and we're now starting to just map out, okay, where can we strategically advertise for our largest locations and buy that specific media rather than doing like a wider city takeover, which would lead to a lot of wasted impressions.
There you go, right? What did you read through all of that? There's a lot of creativity required, right, to efficiently get people to pay attention, right? And solving so many problems. So the first-party data problem, getting more loyalty, repeat purchase, all of that stuff that you need to create for the entire channel, right? It's a lot of work required. Okay, let's go to the final one. So you guys did some very unique execution, taking advantage of your sports team's relationships, but it wasn't a vanilla execution. Explain to the audience here, Mike, what did you really do there that just turned out to be a breakthrough for you?
Yeah, I think if anybody was here to start the day with Josh, he went through our Super Bowl campaign, and he might have just been looking at my notes because every single thing I had, he went through. But I will kind of drill a little bit deeper on that. We went very specific because we know these different markets are unique, and we know the fan bases are unique. And if we come in with a generic message, if we just insert team name here, it's not going to resonate. It's not going to stand out. It's not going to feel like we're connecting with these local fan bases. So we spent a lot of time collaborating with our sponsorships team, with Derek and his team, because they had developed such great relationships existing with the different franchises. So with Denver, with Houston, with Cleveland, with Kansas City, and with Chicago, that it made it a lot easier for us to try something new, for us to do a bit different with our work. You're not going to go in and be able to use NFL team IP if you don't already have a relationship that shows you know how to use it, you know how to represent them well, and then you're going to come off in a way that is going to be something that works for their franchise, works for their fans, and stays true. Our spot was all about convincing people that their team was going to go to the Super Bowl next year. Now, for Browns fans, for Bears fans, no one expects that. And if we came in with that line and it didn't also have some bits of, hey, you need to believe in the draft this year, Bears fans. Or, Cleveland, we know it's been forever. You've actually never made a Super Bowl. If we didn't acknowledge that, we're not going to ring true. We're not going to make this work in any way. So the fact that we did that well, and again, had this collaboration with that team through our internal team, through external teams, and our agency, in the days leading up to our shoot, we had to shoot this in January, before February. We didn't know who was going to be in the Super Bowl. So we had 28 different versions of the script. We shot for, 8-10 hours in the day. Thankfully, Kyle Chandler was such a fantastic person to work with. But we also had to do each version for if a playoff team was in the Super Bowl or not in the Super Bowl. So we shot all these different versions, and I have a Cleveland Browns, you're in the Super Bowl message. If anybody wants to see that someday, we have that available. So Browns fans, let me know afterwards, I can share it to you. But we had to be that specific to make it work, and then, it was such a tremendous collaboration with our agency to make that work, so much time working on scripts back and forth with everybody, that it turned out so well. But then that actually came to be the case in the sentiment we saw afterwards. It was about 100% positive sentiment from those fan bases. I believe the Bears were the only ones that were not 100%, so again, we're doing our best with Chicago, but it takes a lot to get them to believe. But we saw that lift in actual sales, which an 8% increase in that time frame, something 12,000 tickets sold, about 8.7 million, and in that, we spent a fraction, as Josh said, a fraction of what the cost would have been for a national spot by focusing on this hyper-local strategy.
I want to summarize this part of it between Derek and Mike. There are a few very important messages to take away. Number one, if you're really going to have a sponsorship relationships, the types of deals that you are signing, you better have an amazingly strong activation partner who you can work with, who's going to really customize this thing and drive actual bookings and sales. You see, this is the first time in 10 years I've heard that a sponsorship has actually converted into some significant improvement in sales. Okay, that's a big deal. That's a lot here that he actually said, right? That's what I come here to do, by the way, at BI when I'm on stage with the marketers. I want you to know that what they're doing is hugely challenging problems they're trying to solve. And when they do something significant, guys, appreciate it. This is very hard work. Really amazing, great stuff. I'm so happy for you, and you inspire all of us by the work that you do in the marketplace. So thank you for doing that. Do we have 1 minute? Do we have 1 minute? Okay. Does anybody have a burning question? If you don't, I have one. There's something I had a conversation with Liz, actually, a couple days ago. And over the years, I think of myself as I have 30 years of experience in marketing. I've worked with 400 big clients, this, that, and the other, and so forth. And I think I know a lot about marketing. And so I asked Liz one thing. At the O'Hare Airport, when I was there about 2 days ago, I actually saw 2 executions of their fridge establishment, right? One was an isolated fridge at a separate location, and the other one was part of the vendor, what did you say?
Vending bank.
Vending bank, which is 24/7, and it's part of a bunch of different vendors, stuff, installations. And I said, Liz, conventional wisdom is so much research the past 50 years that actually says, when you are part of a cluster, right, there's more traffic there, more people visiting there and so forth. That's proven in gas stations, in strip malls and other markets and so forth, that you get more return from there than you do if you're an isolated establishment somewhere else. And your response was?
Well, our fridges, we always see that our fridges do better if they're standalone versus in part of a vending bank.
Just the opposite.
Yeah, so I think the reason being when it's in a vending bank, because we really don't think of our fridges as vending machines. I call them that because it's an easy mental association for people, but really it's a micro restaurant. That's the quality of the food and the convenience for the customer and just, what we're bringing to the table. And so when you see it with all the other vending machines, you're like, this is going to be vending machine quality food, and you're just a little bit less apt, and you're sort of just dragging the association down. But when it's by itself, then you get to see it from the 360 view as you're walking up. You get to see what's on the sides. It's kind of like standing there as this beacon, I like to think of it, like shining white with the illuminated green. And so we definitely see like the standalone placements do a lot better at the airport, but also in office buildings, anywhere that we get to put them. So we're always fighting hard for those good locations.
So the lesson, conventional wisdom isn't always right. And she challenged me on that. Thank you.